Alright, what up everybody? So I'm actually gonna just go ahead and jump right into the video. I don't want it to be too long because, well, one, I know how you Marvel fans like to tussle, but also because I just am not honestly that invested in like the Marvel Cinematic Universe like that anymore. And so like this is the first actually movie review of any of the Marvel films I'm actually putting up about Spider-Man. And the only reason is because of course I grew up like everybody else seeing like Toby as Spider-Man and really having like a connection and just with those films and how just like amazing they were to see as a kid. You just are connected forever to those movies, and so there's a special place that Spider-Man just as a character has in my own person. And those movies, those Toby movies, were just so emotionally resonant and also intellectually resonant in terms of what they made me feel, and also what they were trying to say, even about like, even if dealing with like superhero stuff, like it still felt like it had something to say about humanity as a whole. So I have tried to give every Spider-Man a chance. Including Andrew. I think Andrew Spider-Man also, they tried to also put some intellectual and emotional depth into it. It just was like in a very messy and not well executed package, honestly. But this Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, that has been going on for like, I don't know, it's been going on for like at least a little bit over a decade now. I'm sorry to say that I just don't, there's just no depth here. There's just no depth at all within this new world or this new trilogy of Spider-Man. Of course, we got like Spider-Man Far From Home, Homecoming, and now No Way Home. And it's so funny to me that the titles are all sort of signaling to home, but we never really even get a sense of like what home is. And that brings me to a couple of the major problems that I have with this movie. One is just the premise itself. I think the premise itself is faulty and doesn't really make any sense, and that the writers didn't really spend too much time developing the story beforehand to really pull this one off and make this one make sense. Also, but I'm going to start with the first one. I'm going to start with my very first issue with this movie. My very first issue with this movie is just sort of a me personal issue. It is because I don't like when characters have to be written as if they are stupid or like exceedingly naive in order for things to happen. And that's kind of what this movie, like what is holding this movie together, what pushes this movie forward, is not so much like a thoughtful and purposeful plot and like character development, but because the characters are so naive and so ignorant and also seem so stupid that they keep making mistakes that just sort of push the plot along. And I don't really like that, because I think it's really lazy writing to accommodate, like, I feel like, of course, Disney has, like, Marvel is under Disney now, if we don't all know this. Even though Sony it still owns Spider-Man, like, it still owns, like, at least half or something like that, and they share it or somewhat, they go back and forth. But, like, there's a map, there is a formula, there's a formula to these movies, and it's like they have plot points, and then it's like they just fill in the blanks. But they're not really, like, it doesn't feel like the writers are very active or very thoughtful in how they move through these different plot points. I also think the formula is messing up, maybe like more expansion where more thoughtful things can actually happen a lot of times. But it just feels like a lot of things move forward in this movie because people are exceedingly naive or exceedingly stupid, even though we're also told that they're exceedingly smart and genius at the same time. Like Peter himself, Tom's character, personally, I've never liked Tom's character. One reason is because, like, in this movie, like, he's going to MIT, like, we get this knowledge that he's really smart, he's going to MIT, and all this other stuff. At the same time, they still have Tom Holland acting like an 8-year-old prepubescent boy who is just so shocked by everything that happens. He takes almost nothing seriously, so exceedingly, incessantly annoying. It's like dealing with a child. Like, if it was a child, right, like, who is experiencing the world for the first time, and then also on top of experiencing the world, experiencing like being a superhero, like, it's one thing. But for him to be like an MIT, like on his way to MIT, almost through, I think about 18, right? He's about 18 or so at this point. It just sort of doesn't make any sense for him. Also, having dealt with the fact that he's experienced so much over the course of like 3 films already. Well, more than that, because he's been in the Avengers films also. For him not to have any level of maturity, even in this final film, or for at least for the like first like hour and 45 minutes, for him not to have any sense of maturity at all until like the last 15 minutes of the film, it just doesn't it doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm gonna get into that later. I want to go back to actually my main point was that too many people have to be stupid in order for things to happen. So Peter has to be like, just, they even admit it, even in the script themselves, like when Doctor Strange says you didn't just call the administration's office and plead your case or whatever. But then it's also like, Doctor Strange, why are you doing this in the first place? Aren't you supposed to be, you're a doctor, you're also like a world-class like very smart magician or whatever, a wizard. And it's just like, okay, you have to be, Peter's stupid, then you have to be stupid. Then also on top of that, Aunt May has to be stupid as well. I just thought that the whole premise of like, let's invite the supervillains back to our house and let's not keep them in the pods and work on this thing as we're trying to save them, but let's let them free, unshackle them, everybody come over for milk and cookies. Like, this could never go wrong. This could never go sideways. It just was like, okay, stupid mistake after stupid mistake after stupid mistake after stupid mistake. After also being told that these people are after being told through the script that these people are also thoughtful, also very smart. It's like contradictory and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But that is it's not a small clip because it is. I do feel like it's big for me, like for the script to be thoughtful and purposeful and not just have so many characters have to be stupid in order for things to happen. I think that is not like a hard ask to ask of like a screenwriter to do that, like like to actually be actively engaged and like trying to say something. But hey, whatever. Moving on. My second issue with this film is itself Aunt May. Now, Aunt May has not really, I've seen the last 3 movies. I remember them vaguely. They're not really that memorable to me. Like, I remember bits and pieces of each, but really not like a full scale thing. But Aunt May, one thing I have noticed about Aunt May is that she has not been utilized at all her entire time of being in the MCU. Really, Marissa Tomei has just been consistently used as like eye candy for the film. Like, she is like, there's even whole things on Twitter and on Instagram and on Tumblr, hot Aunt May, or like the bougeification of Aunt May, or the glamification of Aunt May, and like going from like Sally Fields, and I forget the actress who played Toby's Aunt May, but like, oh, we love Aunt May's transformation into this, like, ooh, yes, girl, da 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 da. It's just like, that's all anybody wanted. Like, that's clearly all that Marvel wanted out of Aunt May for the entirety of the time that she's been in this franchise and been in the larger scheme of things, in the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe or whatever that they're creating. Like, she's just been eye candy for the screen, which I don't understand how people don't find that offensive, but I guess, this is supposed to be playing to like teenage boys or whatever, and also like, stuff like that. So of course, like, that gets swept on the rug because, it's like, oh, she's hot. But like Aunt May, if you watch the first films, like if you watched Andrew and you watched Toby, you understand that Aunt May is supposed to be like the anchor, like Peter's anchor, like Peter's familial anchor, where he can always go back home to, which is also brings it back to the premise of like the fact that the titles of these films have been talking so much about, like, signaling so much about home and like maybe and themes of home, but there has been no theme, like the main theme of home has not been developed with Aunt May. That doesn't really make any sense until this film. until this film, when they finally give Aunt May something to do. We finally get to know what Aunt May does outside of just being hot. We get to know that she actually works with like the homeless and underprivileged and helping people. That's one of the quotes she says in the movie. We've helped people. She says that to Peter. But essentially, I feel like it's kind of rushed. One is rushed because we have to get to the movie, but also two is rushed because we never got that development. And like now, like finally the writers understood, because they need Aunt May. Spoiler alert, you haven't seen the movie, but everybody probably already has by now. Aunt May is being used in this film. She's being used for an Uncle Ben moment, because Tom's Peter never had an Uncle Ben moment. So they need you to feel some type of emotional connection to Aunt May before they go ahead and kill her. And I find that is offensive within itself. Like, you don't utilize her at all within the other films at all whatsoever. Did she even appear? I don't remember. I really can't remember her even being that present in any other films, other than like maybe that one time that Tony Stark was like Robert Downey Jr.'s character was like flirting with her and stuff like that. Other than that, I really don't remember Aunt May, except for the fact that she just pops up to look cute or whatever, and then she goes back out. But I guess that's all y'all wanted her for, which is, that says a lot about the audience. Also the writers too as well. But now because they need Aunt May to die, because they want to finally give this Peter an Uncle Ben moment where he grows up, or he acts more mature, which seems to be the whole premise of the movie, is maturing. Like, they've realized that they have matured. They have not matured this Peter any, that he acts in ways that is not going to probably bode well or make any sense for the future. Like, he is growing up, like even Tom Holland, like, he even looks more grown in this film, but in the first hour, like I said before, hour and 45 minutes of this film, he's still acting like a little child. But he's like a grown man. He's like a grown man boy. He really hasn't matured in the other ways that like the Andrew's Peter was mature, and also Toby's Peter was mature. And so they're trying to do this maturity growth thing in this one film, when that should have really happened over the course of 3 films. That should have happened over the course. There's nothing wrong if you have him be adolescent or whatever, or not much immature and wet behind the ears in the first one. But shouldn't that first movie have matured him a little bit, then the second movie matured him a little bit more, so then that when we get to the third movie, we don't have to do this whole big rush to mature him so quickly and so fastly, and that now you have to kill off Aunt May, who you haven't utilized at all because she's just been eye candy to you, and now you have to try to rush to give her actual significance to the audience in order for this to actually be pulled off. And to me, it just is not satisfying, and it doesn't achieve its goal, because it should have been done over the course of the 3 films and not just in this one film. It just makes no sense. It also doesn't make any sense in terms of the character of Peter himself, because even before Peter loses anybody, okay, let's say that Peter doesn't have an Uncle Ben in this Spider-Man universe of Tom Holland, right? He just has an Aunt May. But Peter Parker is still an orphan. Peter Parker, no matter how you change the story up or switch certain little things around, he grows up without parents. That within itself has to mature a person. That within itself has to, not mature a person, that's the wrong thing, but that within itself has to affect a person in a certain type of way that I just don't think is representative in the way that Tom Holland acts. He doesn't really give me I've suffered great losses, or I know the absence of home, of the home of family, from his experience, which the other Peters do. Like, they feel, like, it's even talked about a little bit in there as well. Like, it's talked about with Andrew, and it's talked about with Toby, that they don't have his parents. I think even in the Toby one, it's talked about because with Uncle Ben in that first movie, he even tells him, like, you're not my dad, or something like that, before he goes off and gets killed. And that's how it makes him feel guilty, because, you know, Uncle Ben was trying to at least be his family and be, you know, be there for him. And he told him that, you know, he's not, you know, his parents or whatever. And so we, even through that little lens and that line and the way that those lines are delivered, it's such an emotionally resonant moment where we get to understand, like, the psychology of these people. But we haven't really done that at all with Tom Holland's. We don't understand, and we even do that with Andrew as well. I think it's even more deeply talked about in terms of Andrew being an orphan and what happened to his parents and stuff like that. But this one is just like, there's no dive into the psychology of these characters. There's no dive into it, and it just feels so empty. And so it's just that's the best way I can describe it. Empty. It's just emptiness. I feel nothing. I feel nothingness. And even like when Aunt May dies in this one, it doesn't really work for me. One, because, like, again, like going before, like I said before, she makes this very dumb decision of bringing home supervillain. You could have just kept them in the pods and worked on their ailments or whatever it was with your machine and fixing them. You didn't have to take them outside of the pods. Aunt May, because she talks with William Dafoe's character, is his name Harry or something like that, William Dafoe's character, the Green Goblin, and of course he comes to the homeless shelter because he's dealing with, like, multiple personality disorder or whatever it is, right? And, you know, she convinces Peter to bring all of, you know, we have to help people. That's what we do. We help people. One, this is the first time we've ever seen Aunt May help anybody. She has really had no other purpose other than to be hot Aunt May. This is the first time we've seen her even and all we see was she was in a building where there were homeless people. We didn't actually get to see her helping homeless people. We just got to see her in a building next to homeless people. I'm not going to get into all that right now. I'm just going to slide by that. Anyway, she's sort of convincing Peter, you know, we need to take these guys home and we need to fix them. Huh? That makes no sense. And it's like, of course this is going to go terribly wrong. I see it from a mile away. Like, okay, this is going to go terribly wrong. I already know how this is going to go. And it does. And it ends up getting her killed. And so it's just like, now I'm supposed to feel like, I guess I'm supposed to feel like an emotion. I guess I'm supposed to feel like sympathy or empathy, or like I'm supposed to feel like this deep connection about, oh my goodness, he just lost his Aunt May, who we haven't even got to know over the course of 3 films. But I'm supposed to feel this deep connection with her, even though she just made this very stupid decision. And like, I'm supposed to feel this deep connection with her, but I just don't. And not because I'm heartless, and also because right before she dies, she also gives the iconic line of, you know, with great power, you know, comes the need for great responsibility, or whatever it is, right? And also that falls flat too. That falls flat because you just did the most irresponsible he was going to do the responsible thing. He was going to send these people back home, and you convinced him to not do that, to put you and him and others in danger because of morality. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel with that, when, like, it doesn't make sense. It's so manufactured, and not like, of course everything is manufactured in a script and in a play or whatever, in writing, but it's supposed to you're supposed to manufacture it and manipulate it to the point where we don't even see the manipulation, right? You're supposed to manipulate it. Of course, there's a manipulating people's emotions, right, to get people to feel something, right? But you're supposed to do it in a way that doesn't feel like I want you to feel something now. Like, you know, like you're supposed to like coax me into that in a natural, genuine way, not in this clearly manufactured way just to assist Peter. Like all of this is just to assist Peter, which is also another aspect of this that I don't like, that Aunt May isn't utilized, but now she's being utilized just to sort of grow her nephew, who should have been grown. This man has fought aliens, he's gone to outer space, he's fought this villain, that villain, done this and that, da 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 da, and now she needs to die in order for him to actually mature. So none of that matured him. None of that stuff matured him, but she needs to die in order for him to be mature now. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it has not. I guess the nicest thing I can say about it is that the action sequences are nice. I guess the action sequence, like, ooh, pretty colors. Like, I guess like, you know, and I understand that most people aren't like deeply invested in like when they go to the movies and stuff like that, they're not deeply invested in really like engaging with these pieces in any thoughtful manner. They're going to the movies for escapism, right? They're going to the movies because they want to just watch like pretty colors on a screen and stuff blow up and stuff like that. They don't really like care about like if shit makes sense or not. Like they just like, we know, did it have like nice like cinematography? Did it look cool? Did it have pretty colors in it? Like, you know, were the people who are in it also pretty? That's another thing. Did they look good? You know, was the costume design nice? Like, ooh, shiny suit. You know, they're not really going to the movies nowadays to like really have thoughtful intellectual conversations about like what is the meaning behind this, because I don't really think even Marvel there's even meaning behind what they're doing in the first place. One part of the movie that I did enjoy was the part where Toby and Andrew come in. I mean, it was just, everybody loves a good nostalgia moment. I am getting tired personally of like the film industry like leaning so heavily on needing nostalgia all the time, like where they create nothing new, they create no new moments, they just like regurgitate old moments and like, you know, create these little nostalgic orgasms for us so that we don't realize that they're not really putting any effort into creating new projects and new material for us to enjoy and like and absorb. Like, let's just dust off these old actors, bring them back on over here, so that way they don't realize that we didn't really put shit into this script. But I did, and saying all that, I did like the moment where they come and console him. I thought that was a good emotional moment. I think it was probably one of the best moments in the entire film, where I actually felt something. It was almost ruined though. It was almost ruined because lazy writing, once again, the way I did not enjoy the way that Toby and Andrew are brought in. We are like, just how are we gonna bring Toby and Andrew in? I got it. Give Tom's best friend powers, and actually give him Doctor Strange's powers. That way he can just them in there. Like, it was the most laziest thing I've ever seen, the corniest thing of way of introducing these characters. That was probably the worst part of this film. If I had to pick a worst part of this film, other than the other worst parts, that the worst part was Ned magically getting, like, just out of nowhere, getting powers and whisking the other Spider-Man into the film. Like, it made no sense. It made no sense. I cannot believe, I was like mouth dropped. I guess my highlights for the movie would be like William Dafoe, I think, did a great job. I think he definitely was the standout actor in this film. He outshined everybody in this film, honestly. There's also the issue with the fact that they completely, stole some of the, like, they completely stole a lot of the concepts from Into the Spider-Verse from Miles Morales. like the whole Spider-Man coming, like Spider-Man from other universes coming to help this Spider-Man in this universe and blah blah blah, like just completely jacked that. Yeah, like, so a lot of this is like stolen material because I guess they've ran out of material, like new material to do for Tom, so like they're just kind of taking from Miles Morales. But like with Miles Morales, like it actually makes sense because like he is fairly young and wet behind the ears when we meet him, and so it makes sense when like when in Into the Spider-Verse, like when, you know, of course he's messing up and making mistakes, like because he's a kid, he's like messing up and making mistakes because he's wet behind the ears, he's a little immature, he's a kid, and then of course when he gets his powers, that's when he needs, you know, these other more mature Spider-Man to come and help him, right? Like it makes sense for Miles Morales' character, the kid that he is. It doesn't make sense for Tom Holland even to need, and this is what I'm talking about in terms of like meaningless nostalgia. Like it's one point to have nostalgia, but like make it make sense. Why does Tom Holland, after already having the experience that he has, after already having like the mentors that he's had with like the whole Avengers squad, why does he need more mentorship? When is Tom Holland's character gonna be? And I guess but that was the point of the whole. That's what I'm talking about. The whole premise of the movie. The whole premise of the movie is the fact that the writers realize that they have not matured Tom Holland's character. That they have not had Spider-Man actually like stand on his own 2 feet and stand alone, and really do the superhero thing by himself and, you know, figure himself out. They haven't really taken him through that process. And they realize that in the third and final, I guess if you want to call it, they're definitely going to make more movies, but I'm going to consider this a trilogy for right now, right? They're just now getting to it in the third film, which is a problem because those other experiences should have already matured him. His other mentors should have already mentored him. But I'm going to end this now. Comments below if you would like to let me know what you get out of these films, these like Tom Holland trilogy films of Spider-Man, this version of Spider-Man. Do you see any deep themes or like emotion, like really like things that really connect you to this character and to this series? Are there really deep intellectual or emotionally resonant things for you happening here? I don't know. To me, there's not. And if you also agree with me, you can also put down that as well. But I will see you all next time for next video, which will probably be on Matrix Resurrections, which I want to talk about in depthly as well. But